And come on up.
Hi, I'm Kirk, and I'm the artist here at this theme at the Arts Visalia. The theme here is the color black. And so what I would like to share is probably how I started developing a technique through study and trial and error. As a colorist, my first study and understanding was color. Color is, as I have learned, has a frequency. Frequency meaning that in science, the color theory, science, space is not empty. So there's energy that floats in science and medical fields, and everybody will concur that this space that we call empty is not empty. Your cell phone, you know, we just assume that it's traveling and nothing in between, and you receive the information. So therefore space just shows us that there is, it's occupied with what we call a frequency or energy. So color has an energy, and therefore it has a frequency by which you receive that energy and you translate it into your own personal experience. And so one of the things in my earlier years is that I was very sensitive as an artist, going at Fresno State University and studying art. I was very aware of criticism. So criticism became an issue in me showing, and it's usually quite prevalent among beginning artists. Confidence is very low. And even as talented as the artist may be, confidence is very low because of criticism. So what I said and discovered for myself, if I can put myself out and show everybody, it's going to be easy to show. So I started going into learning how to sing, act, and I was a natural dancer, but I had to take some formal dancing. And so as I became a stage performer, showing myself was easy. Therefore, showing my art was even easier. So that was my process to be able to confidently show my art. It was a process. It didn't just come overnight. So then later, I found a partner. Him and I been together for 20 years. And with that, I found out that he was very sensitive to things like fumes and paints. And so during that time, I had to find a way to do my art, which I loved painting, in a way that I could do painting without the fumes in a very small area. So I started drawing. People would call it doodling. So I started doodling, and then all of a sudden my color theory college credits started kicking in about color theory and what color was. Color is a light source, comes from science. The information on the color wheel comes from science. It's not an art form. And so as I started putting together the information from my color theory class and what I was using at that time, Sharpie ink pens, I started realizing that by doing some of the techniques in mixing colors, that I could create a thing called the color black. And so in this art show is evidence of what comes from using primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, to create your browns and blacks. I brought a piece here that shows one of my early Sharpie ink pen drawings on a poster paper, and how I used the process to discover to move myself forward with other mediums. So let me grab this piece. This is an example of Sharpie ink pen on poster board that I did to be, and no black was ever used, no black tones, but this is just the colors. Okay. So all the black you see is coming from color, layers and layers of color. Is it easier to use a tone? Absolutely. Absolutely. I can just take one swipe and there's one tone. But the tone lays flat. There's no vibrational life to it. So when you mix color, the black in the background has a vibration, a frequency, a life to it. Our old historical artists, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, they did not have the tone black. Therefore, they had to create their own colors and their own blacks from color. And that was always the standard. Okay? So I kind of learned that. I also did some pencil drawing with the same theory. The same theory that layer upon layer. And can I finish it in a few hours? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It will take me to do one piece sometimes a year. But I'm not doing it all in one setting. I'm doing it in different days by inspiration, by which I may put the piece away and then I'm working on 12 other pieces. So it's a process. And so when most people that are viewers or unaware on the artist process, they ask me, how long did it take? Can't say, because I don't measure time as an artist. So that was kind of my journey along the way of discovering the technique of using color from color theory. And then I did my own studies of famous artists. One of my favorite and most inspirational was Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock, as you know, is the splatter paint artist. And he used a technique by which he would layer, cross over color and color and color and color and layer and color on color so that it created a depth that only he could create through his abstract. And from what I learned from Jackson Pollock was that if you take a small portion of any photograph, any image that has a form, and you cut it out and you blow it up, you will see almost a Jackson Pollock figure, line and line and cross and cross. So it's continually understanding some new techniques, new information. Another well-known person for me that studied was Mark Rothko. Mark Rothko was somebody that they said, you know, here's these squares of color. My kid could do that. And I used to explain to them, well, what you don't understand about these historical pictures is that you're looking at it through this cell phone or this laptop, this image, this size, and you're saying to yourself, my kid could do that. I said, the example that you're giving to me is that you would say from your favorite singer or band that you're going to judge that band by what you're listening on your phone or what you're listening on your laptop. Or would you prefer being in live, in person, and getting that energy at face value? So to look at a piece of art, it's the same. The energy and the frequency by which it travels to you is so different in person than it would be on your image this size. So understanding that, then you have to understand that also your device on your laptop and your cell, I found out, whenever the image comes black, whether it's color or tone, the cell phone is not capable, or the laptop is not capable of translating that black into color. It will default to tone, which lays flat. So you cannot judge something historical in looking at these black parts of this and then say that is ridiculous, because in person those colors are vibrating. They're sending a frequency. So it's just simple information that's very important for a beginning artist to understand, that color does carry a frequency. So then the next thing was to move into acrylics. I started doing acrylic painting, and we started using each other's help as a team to be able to get some ideas about what he liked and what I liked. I'm more of I like creating form. I like creating form. My partner has a preference of abstract. So we would do things together, and then all of a sudden I would say, okay, you put something on there. He would take my form and he would do something to it, and I would go, okay, what am I going to do with this now? Well, that is the part of the artist's lesson, is to let go. You gotta let go. Artists are very controlling in what their image is. I put all this time, I put all this effort, and you're gonna come and you're gonna change it. That ain't gonna happen. So there's a control issue with many artists. And so the part of the thing that you learn as an abstractist is that you have to let go. You have to let go of whatever it is that you're perceiving, because you have to trust that at some point it's going to change, just like our lives. We don't want it to change, but life is going to change it, and then you just got to embrace it, and you got to make the changes with it. So that's kind of what we learned together, is that he would change it, I would have to embrace the change, and now I have to make the adjustments and make something out of it. So those are things that are called life lessons that I had to learn along the way. And so now we actually have a Facebook page by which we have our own art, and whatever we've done together, we put on our Facebook. So in short, that's pretty much a synopsis of me, the artist Kirk Cruz, what the technique that you see in this gallery here is the layers and layers that I studied from Monet. Monet was one of my other mentors that I learned about depth. Depth came from layers and layers of color. He was known to layer 16 different layers. Layer it, seal it, 16 times to get a depth. So that's a technique. And basically what I say is there's millions and millions and millions of techniques out there. As many artists are out there, that's how many techniques there are. So, you know, as I encourage my students, I say, learn a technique. But somewhere along the line, you have to make your own. You have to create your own style. You have to express what you feel. Because that's what art is. It's really a translation of what are you feeling. Not what you see. Because abstract is the counter to all that most people don't understand. That abstract is the opposite of figure drawing, or realism, or surrealism. That abstract doesn't require your mental thought. Abstract requires how you feel. So you're shifting focus from your brain to trying to translate and understand something that you see in the world into a place of feeling. So that's what abstract taught me. Stop using your mind to try to understand it, and how do you feel about the piece? How do you feel about the lines? How do you feel about the colors? How do you feel about the textures? You can't translate those things, even in real life, to people when you say, I really love it. Well, can you tell me exactly logically and rationally what that means? No. It's a feeling. So that's what abstract teaches. That's kind of what I went. So you'll see some of the images here are form, and some are a little more abstract, and some are a little mix of both. And as an artist, I always said, I don't want to produce something that you've already seen as the viewer. I don't want to do that. If you want to see it, there's a photograph here. Look, you know. I want to produce something that you've never seen. You'll come to me, I've never seen anything like this. Yeah, that was my intention. That was my intention. So that's pretty much me. in this little nutshell. Yes.
A lot of your work has references to something that I can experience as I experience the earth. You know, there's a connection there. Are you finding like metaphors happening within the depictions as somebody who depicts form?
So your question has a two-part thing, which is, first of all, I'm a practitioner of meditation for 17 years. So I became aware as a meditator for 17 years that it's called being aware that there's something more in what I'm just observing.
Yeah,
and information's coming to you. But are you privy to listening to it? Or are you ignoring it? Because it's really a choice. Do you ignore your gut voice, or are you listening to it? And so when I started choosing images, for me as a colorist, it was more about taking a form and color balancing it, understanding that there's a color to black. And once I understood that and how all those colors work in harmony with other colors, but you have to understand that. So there's levels of understanding, in short. You know, we all start at some point having some basic information. You know, whether that's coming from school or YouTube or from friends and family or parents or whatever, there's a basic understanding. But it's our job as artists to continue to expand that information so that we can then practice it. It's a practice. It's a practice. And I'll say it again. Listening to your gut voice is a practice.
Well, there's color harmony that I experience as part of, like, you know, once you have a certain knowledge about color and light, you observe things that reaffirm that knowledge, right?
Yes.
And you have a way of, like, heightening it, you know, emphasizing it, you know, really, like, you know, this work over here with these finger, like, almost like mountain forms, but that complementary contrast happening in there maybe comes from that knowledge.
Yeah, so what, as an artist, and doing, studying, one of my other favorites was Leonardo da Vinci with portraits, and understanding that what the black he used and the browns didn't come from a tone. Okay, I had to create those just like he did. So it's called focal point. How do I create a focal point? Because if I don't create a focal point, the viewer doesn't know what he's supposed to be looking at. I have to be conscious about what I want you as a viewer to see. And there's some very basic things that a student has to learn regarding how do you create focal points. Focal points come from our natural earth. I mean, science tells you, you know, we have color out in the world. The rainbow will tell you.